Okay. Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. Welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness. I'm just going to go into a little flow. So I invite you just to close your eyes and relax. A lot of the things that come through are just meant to be felt, not necessarily understood on a linear level. Although there are quite a few messages that I've been receiving this morning, it's very high heart bliss energies right now that are being experienced this Easter weekend. And the more we can relax, I'm trying to just be real mellow and balanced, the more we can feel them. And the other message that's been coming through is even relaxing into the interpretation of them, because sometimes we might interpret them as one way when we're in a particular vibration, and then when that vibration shifts, or we learn new things, or we remember other things, that interpretation shifts again, and we're constantly shifting, integrating. So I'll probably do a little toning and a little sounds to assist in anchoring these frequencies. And as we open our hearts to receive, as we begin to relieve the pressure, so to speak, that sits within the whole collective experience in this now moment, in this particular lineup, in this particular triangulation, in configuration that can be confounding the senses in one regard. We are allowing ourselves to receive, to let down the guard, so to speak, with the frequencies of light that are embedding into our new doctrinization, our new, I'm hearing docking into. So what I'm seeing is we're kind of lining up with something and it's docking in, and we have to allow that to kind of happen. And when we're constantly doing this, our guard is up, we then miss the station. We sometimes have a tendency to then miss the triangulation that we are lining up with. I'm seeing Tetris, for example. For while it is important to recognize our barriers and boundaries during this particular important lineup, it is also equally important to relax into it, to let go of the barriers and boundaries of what we are capable of receiving. And this is a reference to all of the higher energies that are coming in. We are being invited to recognize that as we receive, as we allow, as we are receptive to this expansiveness in the heart, within our, I'm seeing cellular neuroactivity as well, like the brain. We then allow all of the patterns that we have been seeing, feeling within the field, that we have been fielding, to then fully integrate into a new morphogenetic frequency expression. These frequencies that are coming into our awareness, that are bounding into our expansive breath, taking momentary break from reality, so to speak, or from the versions as we convert, as we are letting go of perversions that were no longer, I'm hearing, adhering to the way of it. I'm seeing there was a certain adhesiveness that was breaking down the cohesiveness, like we were adhering to certain practices that were not allowing us to expand or hear what was really going on and what is really available to us. As we allow ourselves to create a new indoctrination, so it's like we are creating this reality structure from a place of just space, compassion. These feelings can create this, the energies that are coming in can kind of feel very calming at times, yet very therapeutic almost. But then at other moments, it can feel like this. And what I'm being shown in all of the meditations that I'm having, and I'm being guided to share that in a separate video. So I'll share some of the meditations and visions that I've been having in meditation. So there becomes this, it's what I'd written down this morning, it's like we're hitting the sound barrier, so to speak. And once you go faster than the speed of light, although there is really no such thing from my perspective, but once you go past this barrier of sound, we break that barrier. But to get through it, it can kind of feel like this is moving along and it has to push, and then we expand. So there is this sense of push and pull right now. But that's why it's so important to stay in that harmonious inner change. Play on words. Harmonious inner change. But also the interchanging. Everything is changing. And so be like the ebb and flow of water. There will be times where it will feel chaotic. There will be times where it will feel more fluid. There'll be times when it's frozen, and there's times when it's boiling. But recognize water holds all of those consistencies, all of those temporary temperatures, right? And so there are times when they all assist one another. The more we can stay in a stable nature, nurturing our stability, the more we'll allow a lot of these activations that are coming in, downloads, uploads, upgrades, whatever you want to call them, aha moments, right? Remembrances, memories activating, reestablishing our connection with Mother Earth, Gaia, and all versions of Earth that we exist in simultaneously, past, present, future. With all of the elements and elementals, the air, water. And I come back to water a lot because we are, 70% water? So there are times when we're moving like this. So we can control that from here to a certain extent, right? This is a monumental occurrence that is happening in our field in this now moment, in this, at this week's end. So they're showing me all of these days that have been adding up to the end of this particular week. But this is also a reference to all of the energies that have been building. And not only is it ending, it just flows right into the next moment, if that makes sense. So we're pulling the energies through from the last, let's say, 7 days, but there is no really separation in days. And we're pulling them into this moment, but this is also a reference to years, dimensions, everything. And as we set our sail, so to speak, as we feel as one with the winds of change, with the geometries, with the electricity, with the magnetics operating within and around us, as us, we allow ourselves to line up our trajectory, to light up our trajectory, our mapping system, following our true north, following our true inner. I'm seeing a lot of words and a lot of pictures, so I'm just trying to break them down. So what I'm seeing is we're following our golden compass. And our golden compass is no longer set to somebody else's directional pull if we recognize that it isn't. We're following our internal compass. And I'm being invited to remind anybody watching or listening to this to feel into the energy that's being offered right now. When we come into a cooperative intention, so a focalized intention. So my intention, which I didn't really say at the beginning, is unity and oneness. When I go into meditation, I intend to anchor the highest frequencies of love, light, bliss. I intend to fully embody the highest levels of bliss, coded frequencies, activating bliss codes, anchoring the highest frequencies of benevolence, oneness and unification, abundance codes, joy. So these are the words or the vibrational frequencies that I tend to request to map into, or to intend to create, or to intend to feel into my field, so to speak. And I'm playing with all of those words. So this is an open invitation for us to all consistently intend those feelings and vibrations. For when we all come onto the same harmonic, and it's not just, there is that essence of I am you, we are one, but we are unique individual aspects of all of that. My feelings of bliss will be different than somebody else's feelings of bliss, or what I am inspired by, what makes me feel grateful and in love with, is different than what somebody else is inspired by, and what somebody else maybe is stimulated by in their environment, whether it be Mother Nature. Some people it's the ocean, some people it's the desert, some people it's all of the above. So it doesn't matter. They're all beautiful. Bliss, whether it's stimulated by the desert and the rocks and the animals in the desert and the mountains and the terrain, whether it be stimulated by the ocean and the water and the waves and the sand, is relevant to each individual aspect of oneness. But that doesn't mean that the requirement is for us to only map into the desert or map into the ocean in order to feel that vibration. And all of our versions of bliss, for example, or harmony, it's like a symphony. A symphony is only created with individual instruments. You do not have a symphony with just one instrument, but they work together in unification to then create playing the harmonics of multitude of notes, playing at different frequencies to then express a certain frequency. Frequency domain is what keeps coming through. Domain, dominion, but it's domain. And they're inviting me to use, by the way, when I say they, it's just me, my other aspects that I'm tapping into that are beyond my ego, for example, that are beyond this. And let me just pull back into that, because that's actually going away too, right? I'm tapping into that now. Therefore, it's not they, it's me, it's we. It's just habit that I say they. And yes, we could be tapping into our guides and our guardians and our brothers and sisters and our spirit guides and our spirit animals. But we have to harmonize at that frequency in order to tap into that domain. And I'm coming back into the example that I was being guided to use was a website. If you click onto a website, it links up through certain keywords, certain colors, certain triggers, and that domain then holds a certain vibrational frequency and all kinds of information that is then gridded into the entire network of a computer operating system. And it harnesses a certain frequency and energy pattern that then expresses what that website is essentially expressing. Maybe it's a website that's about science, and it pulls in all of these different pieces of information, codes, bits, BYTS, that then express science. It could be anything. It could be English. It could be art. It could be food. So I'm just using that as an example. We are each creating our own domain platforms. Yet what we're being invited to see is that domain doesn't just, it's literally as far as our imagination wishes to go. So that's why, though, coming back to the harmonics, tuning our instruments to the harmony, the harmonization, the harmony in many, right? I'm seeing the Om in many, then pulls in all of these different vibrations as well. And then we're able to then tap into, and I'm going to come back to the symphony, for example. I might be playing the violin, which then is tapping into the strings and that particular harmony that I'm playing, while somebody else behind is providing a trumpet or a flute or a guitar with other strings. And all of it is harmonizing together in its own unique individual expression. And this is as far as the imagination can go. So let's use Beethoven as an example. Beethoven was the composer who will pretend for a moment that Beethoven not only wrote the music down, pulled in all of the instruments, created a mapping system on a piece of paper, utilizing ink and pen and harmonics having to do with physics, language, right? Which came from his imagination, which came from source. And that is what he was mapping into through his own architecture. His architecture being his body, his mind, his imagination, connecting in with his guides, Mother Earth, the elements, other versions of multidimensional aspects of himself, which then came through on a piece of paper, which then was gifted to other human beings mapping into his system now. So he allowed he allowed all of us now through time, right? We still plug into Beethoven, and Beethoven still plugs into us, for example, because we are creating the harmonics that he imagined, that was imagined from source. See where I'm kind of going? I'm playing with this, and I'm being guided to kind of play with this to show a picture of what each one of us is doing in our own way. And we're also being invited not to compare ourselves to Beethoven or to any of the masters of physics or any of the masters of mathematics, because we are our own walking mastery that has the capability of plugging into all of that at any given moment. We plug into the same channel that Einstein or Nassim Haramein plugs into, or Dan Winter plugs into. I'm using like a different, Robert Ward Grant, using sacred geometry and playing with that. We plug into all of the, Nostradamus, Aristotle, Plato, Shakespeare, right? We're reading their works and we're interpreting it from our own mapping, architecture. And from that, we construct our own versions of those truths through so everything is connected as one, but I just wanted to kind of play with that. So we're being invited to, in this moment, sense our own field and not rely so heavily on plugging into somebody else's sense of their field. We can use it as a guidance system. We're being invited to use it as a way, a mechanism in order to raise our frequency and vibration and expand our imagination. But from there, continue to map it out, farther and farther by drawing, writing, dancing, moving, all of it. And that's where we sit right now. I have so much more energetically. I have so much more to share, but I just wanted to just share this in flow message for now, in this now moment, moment to moment, in love and light. Thank you. Have fun creating your maps. Namaste.